My wife tried to humiliate me in front of her friends by making fun of my intimate performance, but her own best friend ended up humiliating her by revealing the truth, and that was just the beginning of the shame she never saw coming. My name is Kyle, and I never imagined that an anniversary dinner would end up becoming the stage where my own wife would destroy her reputation in front of all her friends. The best part of it all is that she set the trap herself. All I had to do was let her talk. It all started on a Friday night at a dinner party that Sarah insisted on hosting at our house. She had this constant need to impress her social circle, so she organized an elegant gathering with 5 couples crowded into our dining room, expensive drinks circulating, and superficial conversations between people pretending to care about each other's lives. I am 34 years old, and I was sitting right next to her. Sarah is 32, and we had been married for 4 years. From the start of the evening, I could tell she had had too much to drink. As I finished my second glass of soda, wanting to stay sharp because I knew exactly how Sarah operated when she was desperate for attention, I heard that specific laugh of hers. It was too loud, too forced, the kind she thought made her sound charming but actually just made her annoying. "So, where is the spark with Kyle?" she asked, waving her wine glass clumsily, almost spilling red wine on one of the guests. "Let me tell you all about our intimate life." I already knew exactly where she was going with this. It was the behavior she always adopted when she drank, mocking me to make others laugh, as if I were her personal entertainment. "With Kyle, the foreplay is him asking me if I am ready yet," she announced with an exaggerated voice. "And that lasts, what, 30 seconds? Then it is all so mechanical that I swear it looks like he is following instructions for building a piece of IKEA furniture." Several people at the table laughed. I drank my soda in silence. She continued, raising her volume even higher, enjoying every laugh at my expense. "It is always the same. I could set a stopwatch. 2 minutes of kissing, if I am lucky. And then, straight to the point. 4.5 minutes exactly. I could even write it down in a planner, and when he finishes, he asks me if I want to watch TV. Jen, one of her friends, was laughing so hard she had tears in her eyes. The men at the table were barely smiling, not knowing if it was appropriate to laugh at the guy who was being destroyed live in front of them. I did not say a thing. I knew exactly what she was doing. Every word that came out of her mouth was another nail in the coffin she was building for herself. And yet, Sarah did not stop. She leaned forward, as if she were going to tell a secret, even though everyone could hear her perfectly. "The worst part is that he thinks he is good. He truly believes it," she said with a mocking grin. Bless his heart. Before anyone could react, Holly, her best friend, set her glass down on the table and spoke without rushing, as if she were commenting on the weather. "That is weird that you say that, because Kyle is actually surprisingly good in bed." The table froze. You could hear half the people in the room stop breathing. Sarah went from a state of drunken amusement to pure confusion, and then to a silent fury that twisted her face. "Excuse me, what did you say?" she snapped with an icy voice. Holly shrugged, completely unbothered. "I am just telling the truth. From my personal experience, he definitely does not follow any IKEA manual." I simply took another sip of my soda, watching as Sarah tried to decipher what had just happened. At that point, some guests were tense. Others did not know where to look. Jen had her mouth so wide open she looked incapable of closing it. One of the husbands coughed to break the silence, without success. Sarah looked back at Holly, then at me, then back at her. "Tell me you are joking," she demanded. "No, I am just clarifying the facts," Holly replied with a small smile. "But before you think I was a cheater or a scumbag, I need to go back and tell you why that scene was, for me, the perfect final blow." Sarah and I had been married for 4 years and dated for 2 years before that. In the beginning, everything flowed well. She was hardworking, funny, and direct. I was attracted to the fact that she knew what she wanted. I was 28 and managing logistics operations for a mid-sized manufacturing company, earning a stable 6-figure salary. She was 26 and working in consulting, earning well, though nothing spectacular. But over time, something changed. After a couple of promotions and a raise that was no more than $15,000 over her original salary, she started behaving as if she were the only important source of income in the house. She no longer saw me as her partner, but as her personal assistant. I did absolutely everything: shopping, cooking, cleaning, organizing the social calendar, supporting her at work events, and always with a smile, while she posed as if I were part of the furniture. Our intimate life also deteriorated, not because I didn't do my part, but because for her, it was just another task to complete, before moving on to what was truly important. But that was only on the surface. The serious issue arrived 3 weeks before that dinner. One morning, Sarah left her phone on the kitchen counter while she was showering. A notification chimed. I looked out of habit, not looking for anything specific. The message said, "Brad from work, I can't wait to see you tomorrow." Wear that black thing again. Brad, the coworker she had been talking about lately. The same one she was now spending time with solving an important project. I picked up the phone, not because I wanted to spy, but because something inside me broke in that instant. There were 6 months of conversations, photos, plans, hotel reservations, and comments. And the worst part wasn't the infidelity itself. The worst part was how she talked about me. Brad wrote, "When are you going to leave him?" Sarah replied, "I don't know. He is useful to me. He does everything in the house. He doesn't complain. It is like having a very obedient roommate who pays half the bills." Brad wrote, "Does not sound like a husband." Sarah replied, "Because he isn't. He is boring. He has the personality of a wet towel. And don't get me started on the bedroom issue. I have to fake everything or it would be even more pathetic." Brad wrote, "Wow." Sarah replied, "You are a real man. He is just a temporary replacement, a placeholder while I figure out what I really want." There was more, much more. She made fun of my job, my hobbies, my tastes. She called me predictable, safe, emotionally dumb, easy to manipulate. She said being married to me was like being married to a golden retriever, and she capped it off by assuring him that she only chose me because I was stable, a stepping stone. And regarding our intimacy, well, her words were poison. The intimacy is so bad that I have to think about other things or I get bored. The last time, I started mentally reorganizing my closet while he was trying. I swear reading that hurt more than any physical cheating. I read every message calmly, took screenshots of everything, and emailed the proof to my own account. Then I deleted any trace of that email from her phone. When I finished, I stood up as if nothing had happened, made breakfast, and acted with absolute normality. The following Monday, during my break at work, I called a lawyer and scheduled a meeting for Wednesday. As soon as I hung up, I started gathering all the financial documentation possible, bank statements, mortgage papers, investment records, and anything that might be relevant. To my surprise, I realized that practically everything was in my name. The house was mine from before the marriage. The car I used was fully paid off and registered in my name, and the joint account barely had about $8,000 in it. Everything else was separate. The lawyer confirmed that my legal situation was solid. No children involved, clear evidence of infidelity, and most assets protected. If I wanted to move fast, he could do it without a problem. And yes, I wanted to move fast. For 2 weeks, we prepared every step. We filed the documents, but we hadn't served them to Sarah yet. Before that, I secured all the accounts, changed passwords, and made copies of everything important. She suspected absolutely nothing. She came home every day, complained about work, ate the dinner I prepared, and went to sleep. Meanwhile, I was dismantling our marriage piece by piece, and she was too busy messaging Brad to notice the part involving Holly. Holly and Sarah had known each other since college, but it was never a calm friendship. It was more of a constant competition, a silent duel to see who could outdo the other. Sarah got a better job. Holly showed up with a more attractive boyfriend. Sarah got married first. Holly threw a bigger engagement party. And so it went for years. About a year ago, Sarah stole a major client from Holly. They both worked at rival firms, and right before Holly closed a huge deal, Sarah intervened and took the account. That cost Holly a promotion and a 6-figure commission. Since then, Holly despised her in silence. She smiled to her face, but inside she hated her. 2 weeks ago, on a Thursday morning, Holly called me. She didn't text, she called, which was already strange. Her voice had an urgency that left me no doubts. "Can you meet with me?" she asked. "It is important." We went to a small diner 2 blocks from my office. She was already sitting, with her coffee untouched and an expression that said she had been rehearsing what she wanted to tell me for a while. "You are going to want to sit down for this," she warned. I settled in opposite her and watched her pull out her phone. She swiped her finger a few times and then looked directly at me. "I ran into Julie yesterday," she said. "Do you remember her? She used to work with Sarah at her firm." I nodded. "She still has contact with some of the team, including Sarah." Holly leaned toward me. "Julie told me something about Sarah and that guy she is seeing." My face showed nothing. "Go on," I asked. She watched me for a second, as if evaluating if I already knew the truth. Then she nodded. "How long have you known?" "A couple of weeks," I replied. "I found messages on her phone." "And you didn't say anything?" "I was gathering information," I admitted. "Julie says everyone at the firm knows about the affair," Holly continued. "They have been making fun of it for months, treating it as if it were some kind of exciting romance. That wasn't the worst part." Holly took a deep breath. "But what really matters isn't that," she added. "Julie heard Sarah in the parking lot 2 weeks ago, talking on the phone with a divorce lawyer. Something in me tensed up. Has she already started the process?" "No," she replied. "Not yet. She is waiting." Holly slid her phone toward me. They were notes that Julie had sent her. "She wants you to accept that promotion to director," she explained. "The one that comes with the big raise. When that is confirmed, she is going to file the lawsuit. That way, she gets the maximum possible from the settlement." In that moment, everything clicked. Sarah's sudden interest in my career, the insistent questions about compensation, the exaggerated excitement when I mentioned the stock options, the pressure for me to accept the offer before the year ended. It wasn't support. It was strategy. "When did she speak to the lawyer?" I asked. 2 Tuesdays ago. In the morning, Julie was putting something in her car and heard everything. Holly answered, her expression hardening. Sarah asked the lawyer to get everything ready, but to wait for her to give the order. She needed a few weeks to finish adjusting the details. Adjusting the details. As if I were a bank account she was trying to empty. Holly continued. Julie also said the romance with Brad started in May. They meet in hotels on Wednesdays, sometimes on Fridays at noon, when she disappears all afternoon. And yes, everyone at the firm knows, at happy hours they make jokes. I just nodded slowly, letting the rage settle in a cold and useful place. I always suspected the infidelity was older than what the messages showed, and now I had confirmation. Plus, the divorce plan explained her strange behavior over the last month. Thanks for telling me, I told her. What are you going to do? Holly asked. I looked at her steadily. She crossed the city to warn me. She could have stayed on the sidelines, let me walk straight into the trap, but she didn't. Not even after Sarah spent years ignoring her and turning their mutual friends against her. I am going to destroy her entire plan, I replied. And I am going to need your help. Holly smiled with a hardness I hadn't seen in her before. Tell me what you need. That same night, Sarah came home around 7, humming, literally humming, with her hair still damp from a shower she clearly hadn't taken at the gym. Hi, honey, she said with a huge smile, kissing me on the cheek. How was your day? Good, I replied. Productive. Perfect, she said, as she left her bag on the counter and started talking about a meeting that, of course, she hadn't had. I listened to her lie to me with a naturalness that is only acquired through practice. When she finished talking, I walked over and hugged her. She was surprised. What is this for? She asked. I just felt like it, I replied. What happened next had nothing to do with love. It was a way to reclaim something she thought she could trade for something else without losing what she had with me. Every gesture was calculated. I watched her without looking away, mentally recording every expression, every instant in which she forgot to feel guilty. When she fell asleep, wrapped in sheets and satisfaction, I remained awake, staring at the ceiling. I thought about Holly, about Julie, about everyone at that firm who knew my wife was cheating on me and celebrated it as entertainment. I thought about the divorce papers Sarah almost had ready, about the lawyer, about the plan to wait for me to get the promotion to then squeeze every last penny out of the settlement. She thought she had the whole board under control, as if I were a predictable piece that was going to move exactly where it suited her. But if she wanted to play the long game, no problem. I knew how to play too, and I was a better player than she imagined. That Friday dawned with a strange vibe. From the first second, I noticed Sarah was wrapped in an almost theatrical enthusiasm, the kind of mood that only appeared when she felt she was about to win something. She could be heard singing from the shower, as if every note were part of a rehearsed script. Then she spent almost 40 minutes choosing her outfit for the dinner, putting on and taking off accessories, testing combinations in front of the mirror with that satisfied smile she reserved only for moments when she believed she had a secret advantage. I am so excited for tonight, she finally said, holding a necklace against her neck and evaluating how it shone in the light. I am finally going to introduce you officially to everyone. Yes, it will be interesting, I replied, taking care that my tone revealed absolutely nothing. Because if Sarah had the slightest idea of what was really happening, she wouldn't have sung, or smiled, or chosen her clothes with such enthusiasm. At that same time, Holly had already sent 3 messages since early morning, messages that I had read calmly, sitting at my desk, while reviewing a folder full of screenshots in which Sarah insulted her in ways even I didn't know. Holly already had everything: evidence, dates, humiliating comments, hotel reservations, details of the lawyer Sarah had hired behind my back. Holly didn't just want to help me, Holly wanted to see her fall. Sarah left the house giving me a quick kiss, one of those she only gave when she needed to feign affection. She assured me she loved me, that she was proud of me, that this dinner would be the start of a new phase. She said it with such certainty that it almost seemed ironic. She was still humming when she closed the door. She was still playing her role to perfection. I, on the other hand, spent the rest of the day securing every piece of my own plan. I signed the lease for a new apartment without her suspecting, coordinated with movers to go on Saturday first thing in the morning, transferred half the joint account to an account only in my name, changed all my passwords, backed up my documents in 3 different places, and left a suitcase already packed in the car. Additionally, I called my boss. I turned down the promotion Sarah was waiting for with desperation, because it was the key to her legal strategy. My boss seemed surprised, even confused, but accepted my decision without major objections. Sarah was preparing to file for divorce as soon as I signed that promotion, because in her head, the promotion equaled a guaranteed payout. But she had no idea that the payout she would receive would be practically non-existent. When it came time to get dressed for dinner, I was already emotionally, financially, and legally disconnected from her. By Sunday at noon, I would be out of her life completely. She didn't suspect that her entire castle was about to collapse in a single night. The dinner. The first silence lasted only 3 seconds. 3. Then, Sarah exploded like a grenade. What? She screamed with a mixture of disbelief and hysteria as she stood up abruptly. What did you just say? Holly, as if talking about the weather forecast, took a sip of her drink without flinching. I said Kyle is excellent in bed. It seemed fair to mention it, since you have been spreading incorrect information about him in the group. Sarah's face transformed from red to purple with impressive speed. You are lying, she shrieked. You have always been a pathetic and jealous liar. Holly just raised an eyebrow. June 14th, she said with a soft voice, almost casual, while you were at that conference in Miami. Your bed, to be exact. The one with the gray sheets you brag about so much in front of your friends. Sarah was completely thrown off. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Opened it again. Not a word came out. She turned toward me, desperately looking for a lifeline. Kyle, please tell me she is lying. I brought the glass to my lips, took a sip, and shrugged. She isn't lying. The reaction at the table was instantaneous. Jen let out an exaggerated gasp. One of the friends whispered a holy crap that hung in the air. A glass fell to the floor and rolled, but no one moved to pick it up. Sarah was trembling. You cheated on me? She managed to spit out. Yes. I replied, with a calm that is only achieved when one is emotionally done with someone. The same week you were in Miami with Brad. How is Brad, by the way? Does he still send you those cute good morning texts? Her face became an impossible mixture of colors. White, red, green, white again, like a broken traffic light. How? How did you get into your... I pulled out my phone and opened the folder with screenshots. You left your mobile on the counter 3 weeks ago. I read everything. The entire 6 months. The hotels, the photos, the messages where you said I was like a golden retriever, or that my personality was like a wet towel. I scrolled through images slowly, enjoying how every word pierced her pride. Ah, here is this gem, I commented. You told him that during intimacy, you mentally reorganized your closet because you were bored. She tried to snatch the mobile from me, but I pulled away effortlessly. And I also found your little legal secret, I continued. The divorce lawyer you hired 2 weeks ago. Your plan was to wait for me to accept the promotion to maximize what you would collect. I smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. It would have worked if Julie hadn't heard you talking in the parking lot. Jen stood up so fast she almost tipped her chair over. I think we should go. Yes, one of the husbands supported. This is too private. In less than 2 minutes, everyone cleared out. No one wanted to get caught in the eye of the hurricane. They left in a disorganized line, without looking at me, without looking at her. The apartment was left in an awkward silence, broken only by Holly, who remained sitting calmly with her glass, as if all of that were a show. When the door finally closed, Sarah looked at me with a wild fury. You have no right, she spat. After what you admitted, you slept with my best friend. Ex-best friend. Holly corrected her without looking up. And you were with Brad for 6 months, I added. While I cooked, washed your clothes, attended your events like a useful accessory. You told him I was practical, that I paid the bills, that I was a temporary solution. Sarah stammered. It is not the same. How is it different? I asked, without raising my voice. She didn't answer anything coherent. Also, I added, I already know you were going to leave me after my promotion to keep a peace. But I turned down the promotion. Sarah's jaw dropped as if her brain had stopped processing information. What did you do? I rejected it. Yesterday. I went to the kitchen, grabbed a folder, and dropped it in front of her. These are the divorce papers. They are already sent. On Monday you will get the official notification, but I wanted to give you a preview of the content. Her hands shook as she turned the pages. You are taking the house? The car? Everything? No, I corrected. I am taking what is mine. The house was mine before the marriage. The car is in my name. The joint accounts are already divided. Your half is about $4,000. The rest is mine because it was always in separate accounts. Basically, you will receive the same thing you brought to the marriage, which is nothing. The tears began to fall. Calculated tears. Tears she always used to twist situations in her favor. Kyle, please, we can fix it. I know I made mistakes, but we can go to therapy. Talk. I love you. No, Sarah, you don't love me. You love what I gave you. The comfort, the structure, the stability. You said it yourself. I am a placeholder, something replaceable. I said that as a joke. You didn't say it as a joke, but it doesn't matter anymore. This is over. I need you to leave today. It is my house too. It is in my name. And my lawyer is already aware. If you don't want to leave voluntarily, I can ask for an order to have you removed this very night. You have your family 20 minutes away. Stay with your mother. Sarah stopped crying and her face adopted a completely different expression, a grotesque mix of anger, shame, and desperation. You are going to destroy everything for a mistake? 6 months isn't a mistake. It is a sustained choice. I pointed to the door. Pack your things and go. And then it happened. Without warning, Sarah let out an animalistic scream and lunged at Holly. She didn't walk. She didn't run. She launched herself. She crossed the dining room with her hands tensed like claws, screaming incoherently about betrayal, humiliation, and backstabbing. Holly didn't even have time to stand up. I caught Sarah halfway, grabbed her arms, and held her back while she struggled as if she had lost all control. "Let me go!" she screamed. "That witch destroyed my marriage." "No, Sarah," I replied, with a voice as firm as possible, even though she was trying to kick me. "The one who ruined your marriage was you." Holly only told the truth. Sarah twisted in my grip, freed an arm, and threw a slap toward Holly, missing by a huge margin. Holly didn't even react. She remained motionless, watching the whole scene with an unsettling calm. "You planned all this?" Sarah bellowed, overflowing with rage. "You two organized this to humiliate me." "Actually," Holly answered with serenity, "I only answered a question with honesty. The humiliation came on its own." Sarah let out a scream full of fury, a sound that had no words, just pure frustration. I had never seen her like this. The facade she always showed, her fake charm, her measured smile, her attitude of superiority, had disappeared completely. What was in front of me was her crudest and most real version. I decided to end the scene once and for all. I walked her toward the door while she tried to resist, throwing out threats of lawyers, revenge, and warnings about how much I was going to regret it. With one hand I opened the door, with the other I kept holding her to prevent her from lunging again. In the end, I practically pushed her into the hallway. "Leave," I told her. "Now. This isn't over. Do you hear me? This is not over." I closed the door in her face, locked it with the deadbolt, and leaned there for a second while she pounded on the other side with force, screaming non-stop. Then, silence. Some footsteps walking away, the elevator dinged, and nothing else. I turned around. Holly was still sitting at the table, too comfortable for my taste. "You should go too," I told her. She raised an eyebrow. "Seriously?" "Yes." "Really?" Holly sighed with a mix of disbelief and annoyance. "After everything I did today, that is what I get. And I appreciate it," I replied as I started collecting the glasses. "But you and I know you didn't do it for me. You did it because you hate Sarah." Holly stood up, smoothing the fabric of her dress. "What if it was for both things?" "Could be," I admitted. "But you still have to go." She took a step toward me, making that gesture some women think is irresistible. Hand on my arm, head tilted, subtle smile as an insinuation. "We could have fun again, you and I," she whispered. "No mess, no ex-girlfriends, no drama. Just us." Her fingers trailed down my forearm with all the intention in the world. I looked at her, then observed her hand and knew she really thought all this was going to turn into something more. She was convinced that having helped me that night created a connection between us. "Holly, I am not interested," I said. Her smile cracked. "Come on, don't pretend you haven't thought about it." "I haven't." "Liar," she responded, leaning in closer until she was pressed against me. "There is something here. You know it." I stepped back and left the glasses on the counter. "There is nothing here. You came because you wanted to see Sarah fall. You already saw it. That is all. Now you should go." "Oh, please," she let out with a tense laugh. "You aren't going to pretend you didn't love watching me back up what you said." "It was useful," I admitted. "But it doesn't mean I want you to stay." Her expression changed completely. The flirtation disappeared, giving way to a cold and calculating analysis. "Perfect. Let's drop the subtlety," she said, approaching again, placing her hands on my chest. "Let me stay. We can finish this night properly." I took her wrist, firm but not rough. "No." "Why?" "Sarah is gone. You won. We won," she repeated. "We didn't win anything together. You came without an invitation, unleashed all this chaos because it excites you, and now you think it means something. It doesn't." I let go of her wrist and moved away. She observed me for an instant, eyes full of annoyance and shame, as if only then understanding she had interpreted everything wrong. "I can't believe it. You are serious. Completely. You know what?" she said with contempt. "You are just like her. You use people when it suits you and then you discard them." "Maybe," I replied, "but at least I am honest about it." I went to the door, opened it, and looked directly at her. "Thanks for what you did tonight. It went perfectly. But this ends here." Holly grabbed her purse with sharp movements. She passed by me without looking at me and stopped just a second in the doorway. "You are going to regret this," she warned. "I doubt it," I answered. "You came to feel powerful, destroying your former best friend. You already got what you wanted. And I did too. Now it is over." She left without saying anything else. I closed the door, locked it, and stayed in my silent apartment, surrounded by unfinished plates and half-empty glasses. I smiled. For the first time in months, a genuine smile. The following 3 days were a whirlwind. Sarah saturated my phone, calls, messages, voice notes. She started furious, switched to begging, and then returned to anger. On Saturday morning, I blocked her. On Sunday, she showed up at the building, pounded on the door for 20 minutes while I was sitting on the couch watching football with noise-canceling headphones. Building security ended up escorting her out. On Monday morning, while checking email with the typical apathy of the start of the week, I found a message whose sender made me roll my eyes before even opening it. It was from Sarah's lawyer. The content wasn't too surprising. It was the classic intimidating email full of grandiose phrases, exaggerated warnings, and wording calculated to sound more dangerous than it really was. Basically, he was trying to scare me with a series of baseless demands and claims that had not the slightest legal weight, nothing new. My lawyer, who had seen similar cases, responded immediately with the cold elegance that characterizes him. He attached all the evidence of the cheating, detailed dates, messages, and photographs, and as a final blow, he pointed out the clause in the prenup that Sarah seemed to have erased from her selective memory. After that exchange, the silence was absolute. Not a reply, not an excuse, not an attempt to negotiate, nothing. And honestly, I appreciated it. From there, I resumed my work routine as if life were following its normal course. I went to work, did my tasks, greeted my coworkers as always. No one suspected anything. No one realized that behind that calm expression, a marriage was collapsing, and a flawless legal case was being built. And I preferred to keep it that way. The less noise I made, the better. But on Tuesday of the following week, just when I thought everything was calming down, I received an unexpected call from Travis, one of the guests at that dinner who had changed the course of everything. "Dude," he said as soon as I answered, with a strange tone. "Did you hear about Sarah?" I tensed up involuntarily. "No. What happened?" "She got fired. Yesterday. They escorted her out of the building, in front of everyone." I sat up straight in my chair, unable to hide my surprise. "What? What do you mean she got fired?" "I don't have all the details, but they say HR received an anonymous tip, something about a serious violation of internal policies." A dense silence formed between the two of us. Travis, as always, looked for a way to soften it. "Hey, it probably has to do with, you know." I took a deep breath. "Probably," I finally replied. I thanked him for the call and hung up. I stayed a few seconds observing the phone, as if waiting for it to confirm what I already intuited. Someone had sent proof of the affair to HR, and I had a pretty solid suspicion of who it had been. I didn't take long to get confirmation. Holly called me the next day, just a few hours after Sarah lost her job. Hearing her tone was enough to understand she was proud of herself. "It was me," she blurted out without preamble. "I sent everything to the Human Resources Department. Dates, screenshots, hotel records, everything. They fired her without thinking twice. Brad, too." There was a pause, long and calculated, as if she expected me to congratulate her or thank her for the gesture. "I thought you deserved justice," she added, trying to sound empathetic. "After everything she did to you, we are a good team, don't you think?" Team. The word fell heavy on me, as if this were some kind of strategic alliance. Absurd. Holly kept talking, convinced she had my approval. She told me Sarah had bragged to her for months about every detail of the affair. Photos, messages, hotel locations, explicit conversations, all of that before their friendship was destroyed the night of the dinner. Holly, out of pride or caution, kept copies in case she ever needed them. And that day arrived when Sarah decided to humiliate her in front of everyone, calling her a failure, useless, and irrelevant. A monumental mistake. She waited patiently for a week, analyzed every file she had saved, and sent them to HR like someone dropping a bomb. I couldn't help but laugh. Not a happy laugh, but an incredulous laugh at the surreal nature of the whole situation. Holly believed that made us partners, but for me, she had just crossed another line. "Yeah, well," I said, cutting the conversation short. "We are done here. Kyle, wait, I didn't give her the chance to continue." I hung up, blocked her number, and went back to my tasks. Later, I confirmed that the company policy was strict. No relationships between employees of the same level. The investigation was fast, and in less than 24 hours, Sarah and Brad were out. Their names erased from the system, their credentials voided, and their professional reputations stained. But the story didn't end there. 2 weeks later, Travis called me again, almost containing his laughter. "Dude, you aren't going to believe this. Let's hear it," I said, mentally preparing myself. The man Sarah was seeing, someone sent everything to his wife. I had to press my lips together to not let out an open laugh. "Seriously?" "I swear, they sent her photos, messages, reservations, conversations, everything." The wife exploded. She posted it last night on Facebook. Half the world shared it. "That guy is finished." I stood there processing the information. Holly hadn't just aimed at Sarah, she aimed at both of them with surgical precision. The post lasted 3 days, but it was already too late. Screenshots were circulating all over the internet. The wife initiated the divorce. The guy's parents stopped speaking to him, and he became a public joke. Meanwhile, Sarah tried desperately to find work, but explaining a firing for inappropriate conduct isn't something that looks good in any interview. By the end of the second month, everything was practically defined. The divorce was moving forward without obstacles. Sarah's career was destroyed, her lover's marriage crumbled, and both had lost their reputations. And then came the famous Wednesday. It was almost 6 in the evening. I was heating up a cold pizza, thinking about having dinner without too many plans, when they started pounding on my door. Not knocking, pounding, with that accumulated fury that announces the person outside isn't coming to chat, but to unload their misery. I looked through the peephole and there they were, Sarah and Holly. Together, screaming at each other in my hallway like two people who had lost all notion of dignity. I opened the door and, for a second, regretted not having popcorn. You ruined my life, Sarah howled upon seeing me. You destroyed everything. You took my job. I didn't fire you, I replied calmly. You fired yourself by having a relationship with a coworker for half a year. HR just did the rest. Was it you who sent that email? No, it wasn't me. I turned toward Holly. It was her. Holly's face tensed. You told her? She reproached me. No. It was pretty obvious, I said, shrugging. I leaned against the doorframe, watching them like someone witnessing an improvised show. So, what are you doing here? Did you found a club of indignant ex-girlfriends or something like that? And that is when the storm broke. Sarah pushed Holly with rage. This is your fault. You didn't know how to stay on the sidelines. Holly responded by pushing her back. My fault? You destroyed your marriage and bragged about it as if it were a personal achievement. The two were so close they could barely breathe without colliding. I took a step back, entered the living room, and leaned against the wall, crossing my arms. It was impossible not to admit it. This surpassed any TV show. And the best part of all, I no longer had anything to do with them. Sarah advanced toward Holly with burning eyes, spitting words full of poison. You have always been jealous of me, she let out with a harsh tone. You always wanted what I had. My life, my job, my husband. Holly crossed her arms and responded without a trace of doubt. I don't want your leftovers, Sarah. The only thing I wanted was to see you fall. And truthfully, you are achieving it all on your own. You have always been pathetic. That is why no one stays with you. Everyone ends up leaving. Saying that was a mistake. A huge one. Sarah's fist flew out before I could react. It impacted full on Holly's mouth with a dry sound, almost like when a branch breaks. Wait, no, it was Holly who punched Sarah. Holly's fist flew out. It hit Sarah right in the mouth. Sarah stumbled back until she hit the hallway wall. She brought her hand to her mouth, and when she lowered it, her fingers were stained with blood. Her lip was already starting to swell. You chipped a tooth, she stammered, her voice deformed by the blow. You chipped my damn tooth. I couldn't help it. I laughed. I laughed so hard I had to grab the door frame to not double over. The two of them stood looking at me as if I had two heads. You think this is funny? Sarah demanded, with her huge lip, smeared makeup, and hair a mess. She looked like a raccoon after fighting with a lawnmower. I wiped tears of laughter from my eyes. It is, honestly, the funniest thing I have seen all year. Maybe, in my life. Then something changed in Sarah's face. The fury disappeared and was replaced by a pathetic mix of panic and pleading. She took a step toward me with her hands extended. Please, she said, and the lisp caused by the blow made it ridiculous. We can fix this. I was wrong. I want to come back to you. I looked at her without blinking. You are joking. I am serious. The tears falling were authentic now. I know I made a mistake. I ruined it. But we can overcome this. We can go to therapy or whatever. I will do whatever you want. I need you. I laughed again, unable to avoid it. Sarah, you got kicked out of work for cheating on company time. You are about to lose your house. You just took a punch from your ex-best friend. In what part of this disaster did you think, yes, he is going to want to rebuild this, but I love you, she insisted, the lisp making it even more ridiculous. I never stopped loving you, right? You loved me so much that you planned to leave me for Brad while trying to keep half my money. Holly, who had remained silent, took a step forward. He doesn't need you, Sarah. He needs someone who actually values him. I rolled my eyes. Let me guess. Someone like you? Exactly, Holly affirmed, getting closer. Like me. Between us there is chemistry. You felt it. I let out a dry laugh. Holly, you slept with me to get revenge on your friend. That isn't chemistry. That is spite with benefits. It was more than that, she said while brushing my arm. I took a step back. I can make you happy. I am better for you than she is. All of that was surreal. The two of them in my hallway, one with a lip the size of a balloon and melting makeup, the other with a scratch on her cheek and a torn blouse, and both wanting me to choose them. I took a deep breath. Let me see if I understand this correctly, I said slowly. Sarah, you cheated on me, lied to me, used me to pay your expenses while planning to leave, and now you want to come back because everything in your life collapsed. Yes, Sarah murmured, defeated. And Holly, you pretended to be my friend, slept with me just to hurt Sarah, reported her at her job, and think that gives you the right to a relationship with me. Holly pressed her lips together. Put like that? It sounds bad. It is bad. Both of you are completely out of touch with reality. I am not getting back with either of you. Even if you were the last women on the planet and humanity depended on it, I wouldn't do it. But, Sarah tried to say. No buts, no second chances, no excuses. I pointed to the end of the hallway. It is over. Get out of my building. That was when Sarah completely lost control. She lunged at Holly and grabbed her hair with so much force that both were about to fall to the floor. Holly reacted immediately, grabbing Sarah's hair too while trying to break free, and in a matter of seconds, the two were struggling with clumsy and noisy movements, crashing against the hallway walls, while insulting each other without coordinating a single word. I watched it for a few moments, incredulous. trying to process that this was happening in the building where I lived. When I saw that the struggle went from ridiculous to dangerous, I took my phone out of my pocket. Enough, I said loudly. I'm going to call the police right now. Both froze, breathing heavily, each holding a lock of the other's hair as if they didn't know how to let go without losing the fight. My words were enough for them to finally separate. Holly had her blouse unstitched and her cheek marked with a fresh scratch. Sarah, for her part, no longer just had a swollen lip. It seemed every movement hurt her. You haven't heard the last of me, Sarah murmured, with a tone that pretended to be threatening, although the inflammation of her lip took away all seriousness. I assure you I have, I replied with a firm voice, pointing to the elevator. Both of you, off my floor, out of my life. Holly was the first to react. She picked up her bag from the floor, tried to fix her hair without success, and walked toward the elevator without looking back. She was limping slightly, probably from a bad step during the fight. Sarah, on the other hand, stayed motionless for a few seconds. She had a lost look, as if she were waiting for me to show some gesture of doubt or compassion. She got nothing, not a word, not an attempt to stop her, just silence. Finally, she gave up and started walking toward the exit, wiping her tears with her sleeve and pressing her lip carefully. She entered the elevator without daring to look back. When the hallway was empty, I returned to my apartment and locked it, making sure to also put on the chain. The silence that followed was almost comforting. I went straight to my kitchen, heated up the food I had left pending, and sat down to eat in peace. While the microwave beeped, I couldn't help but murmur to myself a truth that, until that day, I had never seen so clearly. That was, without a doubt, one of the most liberating days I have had in a long time.